I'm Kathleen Henderson from Roots and Boots, and today I'm answering the question, did you grow up this way? Did you grow up on a farm? I've shared a little bit about this on Instagram from time to time, so maybe some of you already know this, but if you've wondered if myself or my husband grew up this way, the answer is yes and no. My husband grew up in the suburbs. No, he did not grow up on any land at all. He was very drawn to outdoor activities and outdoor situations. He was a camp counselor at a big Christian sports camp in the South during his college summers and loved that experience, and he had a few other connections to like more outdoor rural type of living, but he grew up in the suburbs. I did grow up on some land. Ironically enough, I grew up on a 20-acre farm, and now I'm raising my family on a 20-acre farm, but the farm that I grew up on was not really very similar to the farm that I am on today, in that when I was growing up, we did not really grow food. Mostly, it was an excuse for my dad to have horses, a way for him to be out in the country. I won't go into my dad's background, but he did have farming and an outdoor, hardworking lifestyle in his background. And so I think that just kind of gets under your skin, gets into your blood. I think that's what happened with me since I grew up in the country, you know, with wide open space. I think that became kind of a part of who I am. I didn't even realize it until I went off, you know, away as an adult and spent some time in a more urban setting and realized that I really needed to get back to the country. But so my dad had this 20-acre farm. He had horses. We always had a rotating menagerie of animals. We did grow some food. We had chickens every now and then. We had turkeys at least one year, and they did process them. My dad always had a few steer out in the field, so he did raise our own beef, but he fed them grain, and we never had a garden. I never grew any kind of vegetables or fruits or anything like that. Half of that 20 acres was rented out to a farmer who did farm the field. So we really only had that 10 acres that we managed fields for the steers that my dad raised, and like I said, the ever-rotating menagerie of additional animals, including horses. We always had horses. So in one sense, I did not grow up learning the skills that I would need for this homesteading, food growing kind of life that my family and I have chosen. But in another sense, my upbringing did lay a foundation for me, like I said, in that I think that living in that more rural setting and having wide open space really became a part of who I was. And it's something that I came to value, especially as I grew older and started having my own kids. And so when my husband Greg and I got married, our little starter house was in the suburbs in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We started a little garden in our backyard. Some of you know this story. I always loved to garden. That is one thing that I did on my parents' 20-acre farm. We did not grow food. I didn't garden with vegetables or an orchard like I do now, but they allowed me to garden with perennials on their property, and I did learn a lot about gardening. So I did have that foundation of that rural, more outdoor way of living. I did have that foundation of some gardening experience, and I did also have that feeling of what you want to do, you can do it. I guess thanks to my dad. You know, if he wanted a buffalo, he got buffalo. We actually raised some buffalo for meat one year. If he wanted a llama, he got a llama. You know, we had some llamas for a while. If he wanted to get whatever it was, sheep, you know, he just did it and figured it out. And that's what you definitely have to do as a first-generation homesteader. So that kind of mindset has served me well. And just to continue the story of my husband and I, after our starter home where our first child was born, in the suburbs with our tiny vegetable garden, when we made our next big move, this was after we'd been married for 6 years, and our first son was almost 3, he was still 2. We made our big move from Texas up to the Northern Virginia area, and my husband and I both agreed that we wanted to look for a home that had some space, at least a big yard, if not more, for kids to run and play and to have a garden and all of that. So we moved to a 3-acre property, and we lived there for 9 years, and our garden got bigger every year. That is where we learned how to raise chickens. We got laying hens at that 3-acre property, and then we expanded into meat bird production at that property. And the more we tried, the more we wanted. It was very addictive, and the more we realized we really needed some more space if we wanted to raise our own beef and pork and add in those kinds of foods for our family. So that is the point at which we moved to our 20-acre farm, which was 5.5 years ago. Our sons, when we moved, were about 11, 8, and 4. Our youngest turned 4, in fact, the day immediately after we moved. We moved onto the farm, and the next day our youngest turned 4. So that's an easy way for me to track how long we've been here. So it's been 5.5 years, and our boys love this lifestyle. We love this lifestyle. It's a lot of work for sure, but that is the sort of condensed answer to the question about whether I or my husband grew up on a farm. In my next video, by the way, I'm going to talk a little bit more about why we decided to move to the farm and some of the challenges we faced as we considered whether or not that was the direction we wanted to pursue.